All right. Well, first and foremost, let me just say cheers, Pete, for a great day. We really enjoyed this, and thank you guys for sticking around for the finale here. The title of this is influence, and it's obvious that the best thing to do with influence is to hand out alcohol, and that brings new meaning to under the influence, right? So, boo.
Good try, man.
Let's start out with talking about influence and talking about what a new influencer is. What does the new influencer look like? Tammy?
I'll start with that one. This didn't seem necessarily like a natural fit for IBM. We're such a big brand, right? We're, have a history of, advertising, television, print, big global campaigns. And, we started to align with folks like Ted Rubin and people like Jay Baer and Brian Solis, Brian Kramer, people in the industry who really have a voice. And, I really wondered, could this scale? Is this really scalable for IBM? This is great, because you see the entrepreneurial companies doing this. You see small startup companies, right, aligning with people and using their networks. Could this work for a big brand? And, we've actually found that it really, it really does scale. And it's very powerful to have, to have influential people in the industry talking about your brand, becoming fans and advocates for your brand. And it can be, it really is going to where someone lives. So for a marketing person, it's who do you read, who do you care about? And it's more powerful for you to be talking about something cool that IBM is doing than for IBM to be talking about that.
Yeah, I think it goes beyond just talking about the brand. I think it goes to the brand surrounding itself with people that are saying things that people want to hear them say. So, if it's just about the brand, to me, it becomes a little bit too self-serving. What I love is that, working with IBM or a whole bunch of different companies is I talk about what's important to me. I talk about the topics that are important to me, and then I wrap their brand around that. So whether it be return a relationship, looking people in the eye digitally, taking the word friend back, whatever that happens to be, and that is the reason, in my opinion, it scales. Because I'm not being given a topic to write about every week. I'm doing what I do, and IBM is aggregating that content and using it to their advantage and bringing people to recognize who they are by who they're associating with.
So it used to be that an influencer was somebody that was paid. You'd pay a Tiger Woods or somebody in Hollywood that could influence your brand. Now that influencer network has grown to just about everyone. Everyone can influence something. What makes up an influencer today? You were talking a little bit, Ted, about how you've become an influencer. What's the makeup of an influencer?
I think it's just somebody that starts speaking their mind. I like to say I'm not a guru and I'm not an expert. I'm just a guy with opinions that's not afraid to voice them. And then I listen to what people are saying back.
But I think there needs to be some level. I mean, as brands, I'm sure you struggle. I struggle, I know, with our social properties, really driving engagement and driving that conversation. And I think some of these influential people in the industry, they have a voice, they have engagement with an audience, and they have people who actively follow them. So Peter Shankman is one of our influencers, and he's on the news. He's very active. He does a Facebook post and gets 400 likes. I'm fascinated by this, right? I've never gotten more than, 50 on it. Just, my best day ever.
I go to all my different profiles and check likes. So I'll give you as many as I can.
You do. You're good. But so it's really fascinating, how some of these people, I think the change in how people consume information has been so dramatic that you're more likely to follow a Ted Rubin or a Jay Baer or a Brian Solis than you are necessarily to hear, to wake up in the morning and, hear what I have to say from the IBM brand. So you need to really make sure that you're where these people are, which is potentially on Facebook or LinkedIn or Twitter or Instagram, right?
Right, and the thing is that there's new influence coming every day, and there's all different types of definitions of influence.
Right.
It all depends on who you're looking to reach. I mean, when I was at Elf Cosmetics, I discovered the mom blogger community, and they're amazing. And what you have to recognize is that sometimes because they're called mom bloggers or mommy bloggers or social media moms, whatever they call them, you think of them as blogging about being moms, but they're blogging about everything. They're blogging about lifestyle, technology, beauty, fashion, but they're also buying for an entire family, as are the people that are speaking to them. So, at ELF, what I realized is that I could aggregate their content. I didn't necessarily have to create my own. We built a blog back in 2009 that had 250,000 visitors a month. And the majority, 80% of the content was not ours. Was people that were just writing content that we were sharing.
There you go. So do you pay influencers? Should they get paid?
I think that if someone, it all depends on the influencer. And it all depends on what they're doing it for, but they need to be compensated in some way. What's happening now is that this whole blogging thing is becoming much more professionalized. It's maturing, and it's evolving. And people are recognizing their worth. And whether it's a mom sitting at home, and you might think, well, what's the big deal? The big deal is she has to do something to find that time. She's taken away from her kids, from a job, from something else she's doing, and therefore she's a publisher. And that's why I like to use the term micro-publishers instead of bloggers.
Right. And Tammy, do you pay influencers?
We'll pay, let's say I'm doing a major conference and I have a keynote speaker there, they're doing something, or I'm working on an ebook with an influencer. We'll pay for those services, but we've made a policy of not actually paying for, ink, what I'll say, because it gets into a little bit of a territory where it's kind of an adversarial a little bit, right? Advertorial where you're, is it authentic or did you pay for it? So what we do, and I think this works quite well, is we'll take our blog and we will republish, or we'll agree to publish original content. And that way, I think the value that our influencers get out of it is the alignment with the IBM brand. And then we will take and share through all of our social properties their content. And then also, we'll bring them as our guest at certain events, and then they'll, many of them are Forbes contributors, or Drew Neiser's here, Fast Company contributor, different, contributors, social media today. And in that way, it's sort of a very nice symbiotic relationship.
I think we have to also draw a line that we have to realize that IBM is a certain type of company. And there's other enterprise level companies like that that have a certain amount of visitors that come to their blogs that give value in return. But there's nothing wrong with paying an influencer or a blogger. As long as, what I like to say is, you're not paying them for their advocacy, and you have to make that very clear. You're paying them for their expertise, their hard work, and their influence, which takes a lot of work to grow. It's no different than any media business. This is a media business. And let's be clear. Okay, there is no real earned media. Okay, you talk to me about a brand in this room that actually gets written about every single week, unless they're buying ads from that publication. It doesn't happen. It's a bunch of nonsense. Okay, earned media is a misnomer. Okay.
Oh, I don't agree with that.
Okay. Well, there are some companies that are making really cool products and getting articles written about them periodically. But if you want consistent write-ups, you're buying ads. I mean, that's just a fact. And you ask anybody at any publication, and they'll admit that to you. Their sales team gets handed a list all the time. I mean, of anybody who's getting written up in any other magazine because they know they're paying for media there. So granted, there is a certain degree of it, but there's nothing wrong with paying people to write for you as long as you let them know. We want you to say what you're thinking. I value critics. I love paying people to write negative stuff about me. I mean, it's great. Critics.
Wait, you pay people to write negative
Well,
stuff?
I don't pay them to pay, but I love if I pay a group of bloggers and a certain percentage of them write things that they're critical about. To me, that makes the entire process more valuable. Because first of all, critics are incredibly easy to turn around. Let's face it, especially in consumer packaged goods. And if you guys are either in retail or consumer packaged goods, just give them free shit, okay? They're going to turn around. They're going to talk about you all day long. Take it back and give them something new. Make them feel good, and all of a sudden, a critic will become a dynamic advocate overnight. I've seen it happen, and I can't tell you with how many brands I've made it happen with.
Tammy, any thoughts on giving free shit away?
Yeah, how about some of that?
I don't pay bloggers, and I don't give free shit away. Take here's an example, earned media, right? So we've taken at IBM, we have frighteningly large company, I would admit, 400,000 employees, and said, we are all going to get out there and figure out our subject matter expertise. And, many of us are out there blogging,
You're empowering employees,
We're
which is
empowering
awesome.
our employees
Right.
to drive that. And I would call that earned media, right? Because we're not paying for it, but we're out there, we're getting...
They get paid salaries, right? I'm just curious. I want to know, because I'm not sure how IBM's working these days.
Not for that. Not for all your external, speaking and blogging.
No, but they also feel good that they might continue their employment at the company. How many cutbacks have you guys had in the last couple of years? I mean, let's think about it. The more you do, we're all worried in everything we do that we need to deliver more and more value. So what you're doing, because you're doing it wisely, is you're not saying do this or else, or you have to do this part of your job. You're empowering them to build their personal brand. You're giving them support with tools and other things that you're doing, and then hopefully a good circumstance of that will be that they will write about the brand, but also they'll become they'll have expertise in areas, they'll become influencers themselves, and therefore you can hold them up for that.
Ted, I want to just encourage you to have a little bit more passion. If you could get that out of you, that would be great.
I said, damn it.
One of the things that IBM has really been noticed for in headlines.
Tell me, have a cocktail.
is for having their employees actually be influencers. They've been in the news about that. How's that How does that work? How do you help your employees want to
So-
evangelize the brand?
So thanks for that. So our new CEO, Ginny Rometty, you may have read about her in the news, big female CEO. She came in and she said, I want IBM to be known as the #1 social business in the world. And that's both internal, so communicating to her employees and being social in the way we work and how we're externally, focused on building advocacy and community and really embodying the IBM brand and being out there talking about the brand. And then also, helping clients because there's a completely, complete change, right, in the way now customers,
Right.
to your point, Ted, interact with a brand, because now, again, they're more likely to hear about your brand from a friend than they are from necessarily the company. So, we've done a lot of work, I think, on social, and it's a huge focus for the company. And it's actually, being a marketer at IBM, it's actually a fascinating time because we're completely changing our focus in marketing from a brand out message to, really the community-based, focus.
You guys have done some remarkable things. It's just very different for different companies and different types of organizations and different products. And consumer packaged goods and retail is certainly very different from IBM.
Absolutely. Yeah. So what you'll see, you could give some examples of what you've done with the mommy bloggers, right, is a very different model, but it's the same concept, right? It's the same, and we work with a lot of the big consumer brands, a lot of our clients, right, to leverage social media and everything that they do, and that's how their employees communicate. That's how they're reaching out to clients.
And you're giving them tools to do that with.
That's how they're using social
data,
syndicate.
I mean,
reach out. That's right.
Ted, how do you help a community become more social together?
Well, there's different things you can do. Even within companies. At Collective Bias, we all started wearing Nike Fuel Bands. And there was a reason for that. A couple of the guys started wearing it. 2 or 3 started. They started communicating. They started doing more things socially. And as a social company, we wanted to make sure that we were on the edge of that. And then we also noticed that some of these guys started losing weight because they're actually paying attention to this, and then they start competing with each other. And we use something called, anybody here familiar with the app Path? Now, I don't see how they ever have a future to profitability because of the way they limit the amount of people you can follow, but it's a maximum of 150 people. But we started using it as our company intranet. So we started building community by getting people within the company to start communicating with each other, start sharing with each other, start talking about ideas, to start sharing their personal lives and where they're going and the meetings they're going on. And I think a lot of that is important because, like I said, I think the word community is a very important word. Network is just a series of nodes, but community means people that support each other.
Yeah, and also I think, on a consumer level, lots of these companies, are, reaching out to consumers who truly love their product and love their brands. And I don't think they're being paid to say, I love Kind Bars because I'm gluten-free, or I love gaming because I'm a gamer, or people have passions for brands, and encouraging those people to share those passions, I think.
Let's draw a difference between saying I like something and putting in the time and work it takes to produce content for them.
That's right.
That's a different thing.
It's a mix, right? And it's a mix that you need as a brand.
So, and when I talk about content, I talk more about blog posts, about storytelling. I'm the first one to say that let's not overcomplicate content. A tweet is content. There are things that are very easy to do. You asked me to send out a tweet for you, I'm happy to do it any time. You asked me to write a number of blog posts for you, you're gonna have to pay me for it. There's time that goes into that. But I'm also rarely gonna write about your topic, except for Pete, who said to me, you have to write about the CMO Club and how great it is. So I did say I would.
There's also...
So you do give shit away for free?
I do give some shit away for free.
Okay.
Well, for beer. I do work for beer.
And I would say there's also an alignment of influencers, right? So I'll work with influencers who aren't on my, payroll, so to speak. I don't want them to talk about IBM. I want them to talk about social business. I want them to talk about how technology is changing the world. I want them to talk about a broader conversation and kind of align with them, and just making those networking connections for people who, in some cases, are actually competitors. What we're aligned in our thinking around a certain industry topic, can be an important part of this as well.
That's great lead-in, because that's exactly what I wanted to ask you guys next, is how do you build an influence network? How do you find influencers? And then what's the next step from there?
Well, one thing I just want to go back to is, just to finish up with that, it's about value. It's a value add. And you're adding value because, hey, I write for IBM Smarter Business. They use my blog posts because I know they've got a lot of viewers and it gets me a lot of exposure, therefore it's valuable. So it all depends. When I was at ELF, I never paid bloggers. I didn't have a budget to do it. They knew I honestly didn't have a budget at the time. Now ELF is a $100 million company. Then it was a $10 million company.
I'm going to take your beer away until you answer my question.
Okay. That's why I love Brian, because he keeps me focused. So can you tell me what How do you build an influencer
How do you
network?
build an influencer network?
Well, there's a number of different ways, right? I mean, there's the IBM. One of the IBM ways is that you've got a company like IBM that people want to associate themselves with, that have a lot of topics that are important. So they start aggregating content of people that are important to them. You can feature it. I mean, there's lots of different ways to build an influencer network. You can pay a company to help you do it. Please don't make it a PR firm, just my personal prejudice. But
Although it's funny, you talk about picking up the phone. I actually just started picking up the phone, right? I met you, we had drinks, we
So you guys have met before.
we have. She actually picked me up on social media, guys. I just want to make sure you recognize that.
Good.
Picked him up on social.
She did.
But literally a lot of these people I found personally, I've just found through LinkedIn connections or Twitter connections, and we'll start following one another, and you'll say, hey, you should come to our conference, or hey, did you see this article? And you actually start that relationship, and I've found that it sort of grows like, oh, I know that person too, and oh, Jay will introduce me to people because he's very connected, and it's all very much networking, just like the earlier panel, we saw before about the CMOs actually getting jobs through their networking. I think it's very similar. The
It goes to
influence.
staffing companies.
It goes to empowering. It goes to empowering your employees, like Tammy and others, to go out and meet people.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm sure in the beginning I brought you to what we call collective bias family dinners. We used to do them in every city we went to.
great.
Right.
Now we're doing them without collective bias. But wherever we go to a city, we let people know we're there, and we set up a dinner, and we invite people, bloggers, influencers, people we meet on social, so we can get that face-to-face meeting and start going back
So
to build relationships.
What I'm hearing is that it's a human approach.
Yes.
That it's all about relationships. I'm sure you're glad to hear that. That it's really about building a network intimately that you are very much connected with. Does score matter? Does their clout score, their cred score, does their reach, all that kind of stuff? Do you look at that? Or
Well,
Off the record or on the record?
Audiences
Everybody
in here,
says clout doesn't
just
matter.
the three of us.
I look at it. I personally do.
Do you look?
I do use it as one of the measures to look at and see. I look at how many Twitter followers. I look at what they write, their voice, what type of engagement they get on properties. And then, there's different software that will use agencies to kind of look and actually give us, data around which influencers to use.
so it shortcuts it, makes it easier for you to find them faster. And then that's where the relationship begins.
That's right. And then also we'll ask influencers, hey, do you know other influencers that you could recommend, to bring into our network? We'll do that as well.
Well, you know my feeling about clout. So, I think clout's totally irrelevant. I think cred's totally irrelevant.
Is that because you have a lower clout score than I do?
Exactly. But one of the reasons that people have lower clout scores is they don't visit clout as much.
Okay, wait, but what's your clout score? Everybody knows it.
I have no idea. No, I seriously have no idea. I haven't been to
Usually
clout.
when you ask people, you say,
Can we
what?
pull it up on screen?
I haven't been to clout in months, only because, to me, the reason I say it's irrelevant is because I go into brand marketers every week of every month of all year, and nobody cares anymore. Nobody's asking. But I do all the other things Tammy says. I look at Twitter following. I look at the way they engage. I use other tools to view what their network is and how valuable it can be.
Right.
But I don't. Just one last thing. I don't necessarily look at size, because if I have somebody that knows every one of the 500 Twitter
Can I
followers
say
they
that's
have,
what she said, or that's not?
you can say whatever you want. That's you saying
All
it,
right,
not me.
all right.
But what I'm saying is that to me, it's more important about the relationship they have with the people that do follow them, not the size of their audience.
Okay. One thing I know, this is a repeated question over and over again, but can you look at the ROI of,
No, they're trying to
this
shut
will be
us
my
down.
last question here.
Okay.
This is the ROI of influence. Does it exist?
To me, the ROI of influence is, I think return on influence is a subset of return on relationship. Personal prejudice. I think return on advocacy is a subset of return on relationship. I think it all goes back to relationships. And I think you can take relationships when you do it right and you can equate it through to return on investment. And that's my opinion.
I think as you measure your marketing as a whole, it's part of your social ROI that you measure. We measure on all of our digital properties now engagement, and we measure, where people are coming in from, how much our advertising is driving, for instance, versus our social media, and that's all available. And then the other, driving through influence, driving through social. And then of course you can pick up all that data today, understand who these people are, why they're following you, what they respond to. And I think as you bring that into your overall digital and outreach programs, it's very powerful. And
Right.
ROI.
All these things.
Sorry to interrupt.
Okay.
Any final 30 seconds of insight.
Thank you.
My last thing, what I like to say is that relationships are like muscle tissue. The more you engage them, the stronger and more valuable they become.
Yeah, and I think that's true even in a larger brand that it does scale. And in some things, I think in some of the larger brands, you could think that it's maybe not scalable, and we're still kind of stuck sometimes, I think, in that kind of advertising, print, television, big picture, as opposed to some of the, people relationships, and you can get stuck in your inbox as opposed to being out there like maybe an entrepreneur would be.
Just do me a favor and define marketing. Oh, just kidding. Thank you guys. I
Thank you very
appreciate it.
much.